Fantastic. Here we are in the great
Sangiovese
tasting here at Reininger Winery. So thank you all for joining us here right now. Gosh, it's a beautiful day in Walla Walla, a great day for tasting Sangiovese. And speaking of which, Sangiovese, I'm feeling a little Italian today. So yeah, collar up for this. For sure. All right.
Yeah, I like it.
So, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun because a year ago, May, my wife and I went over to Chianti Classico, spent some time over there with friends, and just had an incredible time. So, jumping in here and going through a vertical. By the way, I love the word vertical, whether it comes to climbing, skiing, bicycling, but the way I love the word vertical the most is when it comes to tasting wine. So we're going to be tasting vertical of Helix Sangiovese vintages 2004 through 2008 today. With me, I have here our wonderful Cellar Master, Dorian Williams. By the way, he's getting into cycling too. So
yeah, baby steps. I'm not doing 50-mile rides like you quite yet, but they're 15-mile-an-hour rides, so you know, little baby steps, little baby steps.
Yeah, and as you can tell, he's a baby. So anyhow, we were hoping that Raul, our assistant winemaker, was going to join us today, but luckily that guy's been on vacation all week, and I think he's having technical difficulties checking in with them. Whether they're real or not, I don't blame him for having them. So, but yeah, well, anyway, this is a lot of fun. So we are going to explore what we've done here with Helix. So all of these wines actually come from Stillwater Creek Vineyard. So we have two blocks of Sangiovese up there. Well, I should say Clone 19 and Clone 23. They're both of Sangiovese Grosso origin, and but they have little different aspects. For those of you who don't know, Sangiovese Grosso is also known as a Brunello clone, and particular from Brunello di Montalcino, and so one of Italy's premier wine growing regions. There, the great Brunellos are actually 100% Sangiovese, just like these guys are too. So it's a wonderful vineyard up there. Just give you a little background on the vineyard. It is in the center of eastern Washington. It is located 5 miles north of Royal City, up on top of the Frenchman Hills. So for those of you who don't know where Royal City is, if you were going to go west from Seattle or Snoqualmie Pass on I-90, the moment that you cross the Vantage Bridge on the east side, you take that exit immediately when you get off the bridge there, and that's Highway 26, and it climbs up on the Columbia Plateau there and goes across what's known as the Royal Slope. And the Royal Slope is defined by two east-west running ridges. The first one to the north is Frenchman Hills, and the second one to the south is known as the Saddle Mountains. And they're both about 40 miles long or so. So Frenchman Hills stretch all the way from the Columbia River to Othello. So then, how else can I explain it? Oh, what's unique about Stillwater Creek Vineyard is that it's kind of right in the firing line of Snoqualmie Pass. So when I say firing line, it's almost Snoqualmie Pass acts like a fire hose. It's a low spot in the Cascade Mountains and allows for a little cooler air from the west side to escape over the Cascade Mountains, and that is the Royal Slope is in direct line with that lower opening over Snoqualmie Pass. So the evenings and the temperatures there tend to be just a little bit lower than other growing areas around it, such as the Watt-Luke Slope, which is directly to the south. And that's these cooler nights and a little cooler temperatures actually really great for Sangiovese because it helps preserve the acidity in it. Grapes have this unique quality called transpiration, where malic acid in the grape and it's the only acid that does this, but malic acid through transpiration will actually escape through the berry skin. And the rate at which it does that is a function of two different things. One is heat and the other is time. So the higher the temperature, the more malic acid will escape out of the grape. And also the longer the grapes hang on the vine, the more malic acid will escape from the grape. So the whole game here is, one thing that we like about Sangiovese is preserving that acidity. So that's why this is a wonderful Sangiovese site. The soils there are sandy loam. A lot of it's been deposited some of it by flood, but mostly a lot of it by loess, which is windblown deposit up there at the top of the Frenchman Hills. So, and there's fractured basalt there. And so it's great places. So the difference between clone 19 and clone 23, clone 19, it has smaller berries for Sangio Grosso, but we find that it has a little more fruit forward flavors to it. So we get a little bit more pronounced cherry out of it. Depending on the vintage, sometimes it's sour cherry, sometimes it's nice dark cherry out of it. And sometimes it's just like regular wonderful Bing cherry. So the other clone 23 tends to add more structure to the wine. So when I say structure, more tannin structure to it. Tannin is that astringency, kind of the dryness feeling that you get on your palate and on your tongue when you drink wine or even tea. For those of you that are my age or older, probably not this guy's age, but I recall Lipton tea when I was a little kid. Mom would make Lipton tea, and sometimes it would just have that real drying effect on the mouth, and kind of a little drying sandpaper effect. And that's called astringency. Well, Lipton tea, they've learned how to take a lot of that tannin out of the wine. But anyway, so the clown, here I go, talking about myself again. The clone 23 is actually, like I say, provides a little more structure, a little more tannin. So we really love the way that these two clones actually marry together and give us this just beautiful wine. So this has been a fun Sangiovese week. We've been tasting a lot of Sangio. We've been tasting through Cima. We just actually bottled a new wine at Reininger under the Reininger label called Sangiovese Grosso, which is 100% Sangiovese. First time we've done that out of Seven Hills Vineyard. We typically use that fruit for our Cima, which is a super Tuscan blend. I actually prefer to call it a super Wallin, but super Tuscan basically is Sangiovese blended with anything non-Italian, if you will. So the home of Sangiovese is Italy. They think it goes back to Etruscan times, actually before the Romans. And so real fun grape. And the cool thing about Sangiovese, it mutates fairly easily compared to other grapes. So there's a lot of different Sangiovese clones out there. So Sangiovese can vary from small berries to very, very large berries. It can also vary in the amount of color in this berry skin itself, from some somewhat berries somewhat on the little lighter red side to very dark berries, which is what we typically get out of our Stillwater Creek vineyard. And so it's a kind of versatile in that way. It does do well in clay limestone soils, such as that is Chianti Classico, where we visited last year. And but one thing that I really love about Sangiovese is it tends to get this, not only do we, what's really typical of Sangiovese is that sour cherry flavor component that I talked about earlier. But it can be big in tannin in some things, like some of the big Brunello di Montalcinos can be, or it can be softer in tannin. So some of that has to do with how we manage our tannins here in the winemaking process. But it's a versatile grape. It does not, put it this way, it's much more site sensitive here in Washington than it is, say, compared to Bordeaux grapes. Bordeaux grapes aren't as site sensitive. And I think that's why you don't see Sangiovese planted all over Eastern Washington here. It's important to have the right site in order to get and accentuate the typical Sangiovese character anyway, to really capture that. So it's really important that we have the right site for Sangiovese. I love to tongue-in-cheek call it the sushi wine, not because it goes great with sushi, because not so much. It's, to me, Sangiovese is like sushi in that it's got to be pretty damn good, or why bother? So it's a fun wine. Growing it is often a challenge. Managing the canopy. When I talk about canopy, we're talking about the shoots, which is home to the leaves. Anyway, supports the leaf structure of the vines. We don't want the shoots and the canopy to get too large, because if we shade the fruit too much, it won't develop that beautiful fruit character. And if we have the canopy too small on it, well, then Sangiovese is susceptible to sunburn. All fruit is susceptible to sunburn. However, Sangiovese tends to be a little bit more, generally a little more thin skin than Bordeaux grapes are. And so we have to be careful about sunburn. So sometimes sunburn, Sangiovese, a lot of times you might taste a little raisin type character to it. Sometimes that can be as a byproduct of sunburn or just growing in very hot conditions anyway. You will see that it has a little bit more raisin spice to it. And fun thing about Sangio, though, is when it's young, it will be more fruit forward, get more of that cherry aspect, sometimes a little bit dried tomato, sun-dried tomato going on, or stewed tomato, a little bit of savoriness and herb, a lot of thyme and oregano you can sense in there. So typical, wonderful, Italian grape. The other thing about it, though, that I truly like is when it starts to turn the corner and get just a little bit of age on it, it really starts developing this tobacco and sometimes leather character to it. And to me, that is just, along with that sour cherry or the different cherry aspects, to me, that is just quintessential Sangiovese. So when I taste that in Sangiovese, man, I know I struck the gold mine. So that's one thing that I really like about our Chima anyways, that when we age that in the barrel for so long, 5 years plus, almost 6 years, it's developed that leathery tobacco aspect of it. So with that, I've chatted a lot. We're going to get going and taste this vertical. And actually, Abby, I really want to get everybody involved here too. So if anybody has any questions, anytime along the way, any comments, feel free to jump in and say something, because man, oh man, I got quite the motor mouth going here right now. So I can probably use a little break. So, but I don't know, Dorian, real quick, do you have any comments? I'm gonna throw this guy.
Oh man,
in front of the camera.
Oh,
here,
no problem.
put him on the spot.
With Sangiovese, for me, it's a little. I'm a little biased on it. I personally love it a lot. Sangiovese was the first wine that really fish hooked me when I did first start working off in the tasting room back in 2013. So I'm a little, for me, this is like your first love, right? It's like your first love for me, Sangiovese. I loved how versatile it was, an everyday wine for me. And I just really loved how we just presented it. So Oh gosh. Oh man, see, this is every day. This is Chuck all the time now. So this is what's cool is that you guys get to see what it's like just hanging out with us just regularly, because this is what we're like without the camera here. So this is actually kind of cool.
Is there
I
a camera?
like this. I mean, who cares, right? But anyways, that's all I have to say. Obviously, I'm no professional like Sir Chuck here, but I'm really excited about these Sangios. We've been trying them. So thank you guys for joining us today and being our friends and our family. So let's go ahead and get this thing started.
Are there any questions or anything? Or by the way, I want to introduce Abby Clark. She's our marketing director, and most of you have probably had the wonderful opportunity to meet her in the past. And so she's moderating this, keeping us in line. And well, at least she thinks she's going to try to. Anyway. But so if you have questions, fire them in. She's going to keep track of them because my age, I can't read that little fine print on the screen anymore. And so Abby, take it away, please.
So I was going to say, we don't have any questions so far, but I have been asking which bottles people did open today. And some people already opened the 2004, which we'll be starting with. Other people have saved it and they're drinking like the 05 or the 06. We have some people drinking the 2016 and the 2018 Sangio, so some on the more current side of the vintages. And I'm going to call out the Fens here because I love what they are doing. They cover the labels of all of the bottles that we sent them, so they don't know which vintage they're drinking. So that they're kind of doing this blind. Or can you talk a little bit about what the mystery was? Or I'm happy to do that.
Actually, Abby, why don't you do that? Because mystery is kind of a mystery to me. I think I understand, but I know you definitely understand it. So.
Yeah. So we have very limited amounts of library wine. Some of them we only have 7 bottles, some maybe only 1 or 2. The most we have of some of our vintages that are stored here, maybe 3 cases total. So since we're spending the last 4 days celebrating Sangiovese here, we wanted to give people the opportunity to try these library vintages, but with such limited inventory, we knew that they were going to go quickly. So we decided to make it a little fun. And so on our web store and what we were saying in our emails was to go and buy a mystery bottle. And then the production crew, Chuck, Dorian, Raul, and then myself, tasted through every single library vintage of Sangio that we had from 2004 through 2012. And then we shipped people random bottles from those vintages. So some of you have that 04, some have 05. We ended up only shipping between 2004 and 2008. So we have a little bit more of a controlled group for all of you who are joining us that purchased the mystery bottles. And those wines are still available on our website if you want to try to get a mystery bottle sent to you in the future.
Right on. Well, there you go. Mystery solved. Man. All right. Boom. Well, sir, shall we check it out?
I guess we shall.
Man. All right. One of the things that really, really captivates me about the nose here on the 2004 is its fleshiness. Seeing how it's Sangiovese, and we're kind of talking Italy here a little bit. I'm going to call it Carpaccio, so that raw beef kind of fleshiness to it. And I tell you, that's one of my favorite things in aged red wine is when it starts to develop a little bit of fleshiness to it. And oh gosh, that to me is heaven. So, oh gosh. Yep, so they get a little bit of savoriness in the nose there. The cherry, kind of thinking, it's kind of hitting me on the nose right now. A little bit of, I sense a little umami going on in there. And kind of like cherry liqueur. God, why am I spacing out on the name? You guys help me out on the name for cherry liqueur. Anyway, Yahoo. Anyway, this is,
It's Kirsch.
thank
Chuck,
you very much.
Kirsch.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And so this, to me, this is this, showing just, classic varietal character with a little bit of age in there. There's a hint of tobacco going on. And to me, it's almost like young, fresh leather. I don't know if you have been around leather. Sometimes, I think there's a difference between younger, newer leather versus older leather. But yeah, that's fun. There we go. There's a little bit of that sour cherry and Kirsch going on. And
For how old it is, though, I like how the tannin show, like there's still body to it, right? Like I still enjoy that aspect. Like you're still getting old wine characteristics on the nose and on the palate, but it still has a little bit of, it still has some tannin structure there, like still has a little bit of backbone. So I like that. I really appreciate that.
yeah, gosh, I tell you, I really, speaking of balance, I really just enjoy the balance of this. It's, to me, there's actually almost, I don't know, everything's just so well integrated in this one. And there's some structure, but there's also a silkiness to it too. And the acidity to it is so well integrated into the fruit on this. Well, here's my suggestion with this wine, is that if you have this wine, I think this is an excellent time to drink it. Man, there are so many things in my cellar I've held too long, and this is one wine I think is just almost optimum right now. I could see if we hung on to this guy a little bit longer, another 3 or 4 years or so, we'll start to lose some of that fruit in there. And so my recommendation on this wine right now is a definite, man, uncork it and enjoy it now. And man,
So, Chuck, we did get a question. So when we did our tasting, I did write down that 2004 was one of the favorites of all 4 of us. And so we definitely pushed that in our marketing. Was there a particular reason you feel the 04 turned out so well, especially knowing that was the year of the Reininger anomaly and the frost here in Walla Walla?
yeah, that's a really good question. No, that year, we only got like a half a ton of fruit out of the Walla Walla Valley. For those of you that are unaware of it, January of 2004, we had an Arctic freeze. So they now call them the polar vortexes. So typically those things slide down the east side of the Rocky Mountains. So this wonderful Selkirk Mountains up in the northeast corner of Washington State helps to protect us from that. But in 2004, we had one of those polar vortexes that slid down the west side and really hammered eastern Washington, and Walla Walla tends to get hit a lot harder. So we only had a 1/2 ton of Carmenere from that vintage. So we did 9,000 cases of Helix that year. We were able to source other fruit. But no, just because of the protection that Stillwater Creek has in that vineyard, we were able to, we're lower yields, but we were able to source fruit. And so there was some actually really incredible fruit that came out of there. So a lot of times what happens with those cold episodes is that we get bud kill. And that's why we didn't have fruit in Walla Walla. We had over 90%, about 90% bud kill in Walla Walla. So we did have bud kill over there too at Stillwater Creek, but not nearly as much. So we had real low yields on this. The plants were able to just really concentrate their energy in the lower yield or the smaller amount of fruit that they did have. But the vintage itself was actually a nice vintage if you did have fruit. So I thought of 2004, typically, usually the odd vintages, generally speaking, are more optimum. But 2004 turned out to be a very, very nice vintage all around. So, but I think a lot of it's just the concentration of the flavors with the lower yields really, truly helped out that year. You know, it's just so much fun. That's one thing about winemaking is how do we deal with adversity? Because it's every vintage worth, that adversity thug just throws its big fist at us every single year in one form or another, and it's all how we deal with it. And winemaking, if you can't roll with the punches and pivot and learn to turn on a dime, man, yeah, you're not a happy camper. You shouldn't be in this business, so because that's really what it's all about. So anyway, because nothing goes as planned, no matter how much you plan it. When it comes to winemaking, nothing goes as 100% of how you envision it happening. So, all right, so back to this 2004. Like I say, this is definitely, I think, an outstanding wine, and I'm really proud of how this is tasting right now. But again, my recommendation is, if you have it in your cellar, drink it. If you just received it from us, if this was one of your mystery wines, I would recommend not touching it. Lay it down in your cellar and hang on to it. Let it settle down. Wine does what we call not bottle shock, but gets bottle dumb from traveling. And so if you can, lay it down for, say, 3 months, 3-4 months, before opening it up, and give it time to, shake off that travel stuff. It's travel weariness, if you will. And so, yeah, 3 or 4 months, go for it. So 3 to 4 months to a year, go for it. Uncork it, unleash it. Man, do I have to pour this out? I have to pour this out. No, I don't. I have another glass here. I'm going to save that guy. Do you want another glass? Do you want to? Wait a minute, man. He doesn't need another glass. Jeez. Okay. We know he's going to be rolling out on the barrel today after this tasting. Gosh. All right.
It's the youth.
That's right, man. So yeah, after my bike ride this morning, I tell you, this, when my metabolism gets going, I have to be careful. So, all right. So the next wine is the Helix Sangiovese 2005. We're just gonna bicycle or roll right on into it. All right.
See, even Mike said you didn't have to pour it out. So we like the wavelength you're on, Mike. We like it. We like your style, my man.
I think my cycling this morning has really heightened my senses, because, wow, I really like this more than the last time that we tasted. I mean, I'm just sensing a lot more out of this. The last time we tried this, I wasn't getting as much out of the glass as I am right now. And
definitely get more fruit off of the nose on this one versus the 04.
Yeah, and I'm getting a little bit of this one. I'm getting a little more aged leather, kind of like the bottom of the leather. Where kind of the suede side of the leather, and something that's been out. So there's a little bit of earthiness to it, and oh man, wow, this is really fun for me. Oh yeah, you're right. I'm getting a lot more fruit on this than I did a week ago. The fruit is coming out. Um, I get a little bit of stewed tomato going on in there. Definitely a little bit of earthiness, the tannins. I don't know if it's tannin buildup. I get just a tiny bit that I'm getting out of the 2000. But again, I'm getting a little carpaccio, but in a different way. I'm getting some of that fleshiness in there. And
the tannins are really fine though.
mm-hmm.
Really, really fine. You know, really welcoming. You know, I really like it. It's a really fine presence. So
Kind of reminds me of you. Really welcoming. Absolutely. So it's great having you out here, because then when we bring customers out here, or winery family members, they get greeted by a really nice guy like you.
Well, really, it's just a matter of like paying it forward, right? Like, just because like that's what was done for me when I first started. Like that just seemed like the Reininger way, right? Like I just remember when I first started here being so wet behind the ears, not really drinking wine at all before working here at all. Like when I say at all, like I mean never. So it was just so fun how welcoming everybody was and how fun everybody was having while working in the tasting room, while working harvest, and being able to work harvest my first year of working here was fun too. So I just always try to make sure to like do what y'all did for me, just that passion for wine, like never stop being a kid when it comes to the wine process. So I just always try to I even get goosebumps just talking about it. I just try to pass that. I really found out not too many people really get to enjoy doing what they do, right? So if you get to enjoy doing it with people you enjoy, it just makes it that much better, right? So it's just a matter of like giving people an avenue to like the joy that we get on the day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and the fun and adventure of doing this too. Gosh, man, what a kick, man. You know, I don't get as much umami out of this guy.
No.
Not quite as much.
No.
As I did out of the 2004, but
I definitely get definitely cherry, like a more intense cherry on this one, a dark cherry.
mm-hmm.
But it is brighter in ways, but you can definitely tell it is just younger. It doesn't age on it as the 04, and it's only a 12-month difference, right? So it's interesting to see how much of a, right, this is the 05 run right here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of getting I don't get that kirsch aspect in this. I get a little bit more sour cherry out of this than I did in the 2004. And there's almost a hint of wood spice. I know there's not a lot of, oak on this. So our Sangioveses, we put very little new oak, if any, on our Sangioveses, because Sangiovese is what I refer to as an oak sponge. It will absorb those oak flavors very quickly. And if we're not careful in the winemaking process, we can really overpower the Sangiovese character real quickly with new oak. So we want to be very judicious in that, especially after it ages a while. So when red wines tend to age a little bit, if they're overpowered by the red oak, well, the fruit will start disappearing, but the oak never does. So then, sometimes actually, some wines that actually start resembling more Scotch, because that's what gives Scotch its color, is actually aging in oak barrels. And so sometimes, especially if it's a high alcohol wine, you start getting a little Scotch character to it. But so it's, in fact, it was really fun when I was over there in Italy last year. They use a lot of Slavian. I can't even talk. Slavian. That's the word I'm looking for. Slavian oak, and they use a lot of really, huge casks, and most of it's used. Very rarely did I see new oak at all over there. So that just reinforced my thoughts anyway on how I perceive Sangiovese and the best way to approach it. So it was a lot of fun going over there and seeing that. So, all right. Well, I think we have another winner here. This guy, I think you could actually cellar a little bit longer than the 2004. So if you have both in your cellar, do the 2004s. And I'm not just saying that just because is a little bit younger, because sometimes some wines, some vintages will cellar a lot longer than maybe the one just previous to it. But this one, I think, another 2 or 3 years is just fine. You might even get 4 more years out of this. But again, a lot of this too depends on how much you like cellared wines. So I find it is the natural progression of anyone's palate is that they're going to like younger, more youthful wines first, before they learn to appreciate the more aged wines. So the younger wines will be more fruit forward, bigger fruit up front. The only thing about young wines, sometimes they can be more tannic in their youthful, younger years, and then you can decant it, you can pour a young wine into a decanter, put your hand over the top, just shake the heck out of it, and just really beat it up and open it up to air, and it will really come out and really start opening up. But with older wines like this 2004, 2005, if you were to decant it, I would decant it very gently. I wouldn't go shaking it up at all because there's volatiles in there, and you don't want to lose those volatiles. So in younger wines, sometimes it takes a lot to get those volatiles to release and to open up. In the older wines, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you only have one pour, before you lose those volatiles. And the volatiles are what rises out of your palate up to your olfactory bulb and gives us all those fruit flavors that we sense. Yeah. Anyway, these guys, I think you could decant these a little bit if you wanted to. What I would do with them, all of these wines actually, if you can plan ahead, put them upright in your cellar for a couple of days before pulling them out. And then when you do pull it out, you might want to decant them a little bit. That's up to you. If you put them upright for 3 or 4 days anyway, you probably don't need to decant them. Yeah, it might not hurt. All right. So, man.
Chuck, does the oak impart less flavor if the barrel's reused?
Yes. Yeah. The most potent in barrel is when it's brand new. It's got plenty of angular, spicy oak to it, and it will impart about 60% of the flavor that it has to give to the wine in the first year. So the second year will impart about 30% of the flavor it has, and the third year about 10%. So basically by the fourth year, the barrel will be neutral. It won't have any more flavor to actually impart to the wine itself. But occasionally, sometimes in fourth year barrels there, you might get a little bit. Just depends on the barrel, the cooper, the forest, the toasting. But generally by the fourth year, we consider the barrels neutral. So, and most of everything that we do here, most of it's neutral oak. So I know there's a few barrels of new oak that got in on some of them, but fortunately, I'm getting older and I can't remember that far back. But if you're really, but I could dig it up and find out. So, all right. Anybody have any comments on this 2005?
Yeah, both the 04 and 05, so we've gotten some comments. So people love the age on the 04, how smooth and well-rounded and complex it is. a lot of our people are tasting the leather in the O5 that you had mentioned and really enjoying it. The going back to the O4, that it's really earthy and has a lot of fruit for being 2004, and really full in the mouth. So lots of positive feedback on those older vintages.
Yeah, well, Dorian was just talking about he liked that when you mentioned mouthfeel.
Yeah, the mouthfeel in the O4. That's what I did like about it, about how old it is, for it to still have, you know, not necessarily an assertive mouthfeel, but a presence on the palate. It's just refreshing for a 16-year-old Sangiovese.
Yeah, I like the way it had that kind of it just kind of, but it also just glided across the palate, and I
transitioned smoothly, well integrated,
yeah.
like you said earlier, well integrated, good smooth transitions.
Yeah, so the mouthfeel, I agree. Whoever made that comment, I definitely think the O4 has a little nicer mouthfeel to it. So there's a little more rustic aspect. That's the only way I can describe it.
That's
really fair. Not all that rustic.
But it's a fair description,
I
think.
More rustic.
In comparison to the O5. Yeah. I think it's a fair comparison.
All right. You know, it's really fun too, as this wine is opening up, you know, towards the finish. That sour cherries is really becoming more prevalent on the finish of that O5.
Well, and that's something that I think we noticed the first time we were running through these. They were changing as they were opening, right? As they were breathing on the table, right? So, I mean, when we started to run through the second time through, we were really noticing some definitely unique changes to some of these wines.
Yeah, in fact, that is something. You know, it's, you know, if there's one thing I've learned about with tasting wine over the years is, gosh, when you open up an older wine, give it a chance, let it breathe a while, open it up, gosh, at least an hour, if you can, maybe 2 or 3 hours even before your dinner. I've had too many times where I've opened up a wine, somebody's brought a beautiful wine, or I've taken a beautiful wine to dinner, gets opened up, and you're at a restaurant, but we haven't had the time to let that beautiful, gorgeous wine that might be 30 years old, 40 years old, didn't give it enough time to open up. And fortunately, there was, you know, maybe a third or quarter of the bottle left at the end of dinner, you know, 3 hours later, and we go back to it and just, oh my gosh, you know, sometimes it wasn't all that impressive when we first opened it up, and then it's just unbelievable at the end of dinner, and you're just going, oh, why didn't we just, you know, be more patient with this wine and open it up earlier, or even arrive at the restaurant, stop by a little bit earlier, you know, and ask them to open it up, go home, change, and then come back to the restaurant and show up. I tell you, I've had that happen to me with some spectacular, and but I was able to have the opportunity to a little bit when it's open.
Now, Chuck, you had mentioned that wines can have that kind of volatile characteristic, and sometimes that you only have a couple minutes to 30 minutes or whatever to like taste it before it's gone. So how do you recommend having these wines and letting them open and age and breathe if the flavor can go in a matter of minutes?
Right. No, it's not. It's the volatiles will get blown off through action of the wine, through the movement of the wine. So the whole point is some, you know, to let the wines open up. But this is also important too, coming from cellar temperature to room temperature, okay? That will slowly allow the volatiles to open up and to release, because you're gonna get more volatiles at higher temperatures. That's why, like on 90 days, you know, red wine just is not fun at all, because you pour it, and because it's so hot, boom, the volatiles are gone, and you're left with oak and alcohol and tannins, and it's just not a lot of fun. So when I talk about that, you know, open the bottle up, just let it breathe, you know, just with cork, just open it up, you get some air in it, you can just put the cork back in, so if there are little flies or whatever, you know, just protect it. But once you open it up, and I also pour just a tiny bit off of the top too, because if you to check it out to see if it's been corked and make sure the wine's okay, but it will also get the wine out of the neck of the bottle and open up a little more surface area here too. So once you've done that, you can just go ahead and lightly put the cork back in just to protect it, but it will start opening up once you've exposed it to oxygen like that. So, so it's very important. The best time to enjoy a red wine is that warming up from cellar temperature to room temperature. And that's why I recommend standing it up inside your cellar. But those volatiles, what I was talking about is they'll get released. So when we pour, if it's more fragile wine, older fragile wine, go ahead, be gentle. Be really, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but be really gentle with your pour. Same thing if you're pouring it into a decanter. Don't rough it up, you know. And it can also open up more in your glass. Just, you know, let it sit there and let it warm up, and just check it out. You'll put your nose in it every once in a while, and you'll see how the nose itself evolves. You know, it will go from maybe closed, you can't smell, you might smell a lot of earthiness or something like that, might not get the fruit, and it might not be a little while until the wine warms up and releases more of those volatiles that, you know, it might be in, you know, half hour later in your glass. And those volatiles, if you don't disturb the wine too much and you're gentle with it, they'll collect in the glass. That's the reason for the bulb or tulip shape of the wine glasses, to collect those volatiles. And you have it high. You don't pour the wine up to the top. You leave it down here, just about where the bulb, you don't want to pour it any more than where it's starting to go past vertical. So that way you have this big surface area in the wine glass, but there's also a lot above it to protect it from air currents, you know, to steal those volatiles from you. So I hope I'm answering that question. So the important things about volatiles is they become more volatile with warmer temperature, and also when you disturb things and shake them up, you're going to be releasing volatiles. Am I answering that question a little better? Whoever asked that question? So,
yes, yeah.
it's really important. It's a really important concept to understand. So there's always a balance there. So and the more experience you have with tasting wines, from young wines to more aged wines, you will learn this. You'll pick. And especially what's nice, if you're able to purchase, say, a half a case of wine or a case of wine, and you can experience that wine from youth to age. So, you know, every couple of years, try that wine. Make your notes, you know, or even scribble a little bit on the inside of that box, you know, that case. If it's just, you know, sitting in a case in your cellar or something, and you can refer back to it, just something to jog your memory. And that's the fun thing about wine, is the practice, just practice observing it. We all have the ability to do it. Some have better tasting ability than others. There's no question about it. Females usually definitely have better tasting abilities than men. And, but it's really, you know, the practice of observation, and that's really what tasting wine. You know, tasting wine can be as simple as yum yum, or wow, what's going on? You know, what is that? What am I smelling? What does it remind me of in my life experience? What does it remind me of? Does it remind me of that beautiful carpaccio that I had in Italy? Does it remind me of the raspberries, the wonderful fresh raspberries that I was picking out of my garden earlier this summer? Or the salmon berries and thimbleberries when I was out hiking, or honeysuckle, or just, you know, it's just all of these different things. It's just fun to make a mental note of it and try and make, you know, increase your taste library memory and your smell library memory, all of that. And so the more we do it, the better we get at it. So yeah, all right, on to the next one. So that was the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I am, this is really funny because wasn't it the 5 that, which one was it that you and Raul were really, really hot on?
Well, I know exactly which one it was.
Okay.
Abby and I were talking about it earlier. So we'll just see what Chuck has to say about it later.
I know.
If he likes it, he likes it now, and he was wrong the first time.
Yeah.
And if not, we'll and that's kind of the fun thing about this tasting, right? Like just seeing how what we were saying about the second to 05, how much more fruit was just showing this time around, right? And I think it just plays back, and to piggyback on what Chuck said earlier, that it's really fun to taste the wine throughout the journey, right? You're really getting to appreciate it for different reasons at different times, right? So like you can enjoy it for how bright it is and how assertive those tannins are when it's young versus when it's finally aged, and it's just more refined, right? It's more elegant at that point in time, right? It's dancing the dance with so much, just with this way about walking.
Yeah, and it all depends on what our bodies are doing at that time too, because our body chemistry changes from day to day, and believe me, it affects the way that we perceive and taste things too. Believe me, we have bad days sometimes. I mean, there's times we'll set up tasting trials here, and in every single wine will have the same off, not so pleasant taste to me anyway. But when I get to the 10th wine and I'm experiencing the same thing of why I don't like caring for a wine, it's all because I realize that, hey, it's me today, man. I got to shut it down. This is worthless. And I can come back the next day and, hey, I'm back on, and I can taste. So and some of that has to do with the foods that we've eaten,
definitely.
how much we've beaten ourselves up.
It's definitely what moods you're in, for sure, because sometimes you can walk away from a good blend just because you weren't in the greatest mindset that day. Like just because you weren't there, you could be walking away from something bad. And so that's something I've learned personally with working with you and Raul, is like sometimes when you're finding a common characteristic within a wine and it's consistent as to what you don't like about it. And I'm meaning that the common thing that you don't like about it is common across the board.
Right.
That's how you have to be willing to take a step back and like, okay, like I just need today is not my day, because everybody has an off day. And I think that that's part of the process of the winemaking, being able to be self-aware of just being understanding, like, this is what's affecting my tasting, that I'm off, and it's okay, but just come back tomorrow ready to rock and roll.
And exactly. It used to be really frustrating because you spend all this time setting up trials and, devoting this time and energy to it. And then you just have to shut it down.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of it. I mean, we got to be able to admit to ourselves, hey, it's not our day today, So the next wine that we're tasting here is our 2006, going right in order here.
The other question, I was going to bring it up later, but maybe it's great to talk about it now, is do we have a rank of like these library wines that we're pouring on, like a favorites? I guess the reason why I was holding off on asking is because I know I have Raul's written down, but both the two of you had different preferences as well.
Yeah, we did, but I would really prefer I guess not everybody has all of these wines, so we could do that later on. But I want everybody to realize though that truly wine is the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so because we all taste differently, every single person literally tastes differently. And so our taste thresholds are different for every single flavor component that's in these wines. And some of them might have, thousands of different flavor components in them. So we literally all do taste differently. So listen to yourself. I mean, this is fun chat and stuff. You use us as a basic guideline if you like. We do have, our palates are a little different, and that's fun. That's part of the fun of it. So when you buy wine, always buy wine for yourself. So, you know, if you're a couple, you know, my suggestion is everybody buy some wine they like, you know, so, so don't, you know.
Well, because it could be a learning experience, right? Because sometimes you can find a characteristic that may or may not be your favorite, right? But then sometimes, like for me, and for instance, you're just, when you find characteristics you may or may not like, what you can try is just you really figure out is how did that winemaker integrate that so favorite flavor or characteristic? How is it integrated in this wine? How is it showing in this wine, right? Like that way you can kind of learn to find an appreciation for that, because that's what I had to do for myself when it came to appreciation of older wines. Like you were saying, I did like the younger, more fruit forward wines, but really, I mean, it took me 7 years of tasting wine on a consistent basis before I finally truly tried to appreciate aged wine, right? And really understanding what it's like and when those flavor profiles.
Same thing. It took about 7 years to appreciate a little age.
But it's definitely a personal preference, right? Something that could be abrasive to some could be so welcoming to somebody else, right? So
absolutely,
it's just a matter of just being open-minded, and sometimes do try some things.
And it can be just. It may not be, it may be one person's day and not the other day. Yeah. You know, it could be the next day. You would love that wine. So, all right, I'm gonna let you start this one off. What do you get? What do you get going, or what do you have going in there?
Well, what's nicer, obviously, since we are going younger, we're getting more fruit on the nose, right? We're starting to usher away from the umami characteristics as much, and you're getting more fruit characteristics on the nose. So it's for me, the way I like to describe it, they're starting to become, how I can say, more fun. they're starting to become
a little more fun.
That's how you perceived it, but that was not my vocabulary. But I mean, it's just you know, sometimes it just might remind you of when you're a kid, right? Anything that's slightly above, like slightly sweet or anything like that, it kind of gets you excited, right? Because you're thinking about a treat, right? So I like that the nose is welcoming. So obviously the way I speak about wine versus the way that you speak about wine is different, right? I go more of on a feeling basis with the characteristics.
He's got a big heart.
I got a big body, so I got to fill it in there. But I definitely it's more playful on the nose, right? I definitely get more youth on the nose, which is fun for me. I definitely get more fruit.
Yeah, it's fun that you mentioned sweetness, because in the nose, I get almost a sweet cherry aspect in the nose. It's darker cherry, I think, than what we've seen in the previous wines.
But definitely, like it's not having that, you know, that meaty, you know, that fleshy, the earthy characteristics aren't there on this one. You know, for me at least, I'm not perceived. It's not as much of a factor on this one.
No, I agree with you. To me, this is a meatier cherry.
And then even, you know, the tannins are starting to amplify a little bit more. I mean, you're starting to experience them. They're not as fine anymore. You're starting to see them just be I don't think they're just starting to make their presence more well known, right? It's not as fine anymore. But I like it because for me, Sangiovese is almost like the best of a lot of worlds, right? You're getting a little fruit, you get some tannins in there, which is great for you. But I like how integrated things are, how smooth things transition. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that part.
Okay, so here I agree with Dorian completely that, you know, it's not as fleshy, and I don't perceive as much leather here. I see it in the future. It's just really super underlying in this. So as this age, I believe it will develop a little bit more of that tobacco leather type aspect to it. Here I see a little meatier, darker cherry going on, but I think it's some really nice intense cherry. And I get a tiny bit of that kirsch coming back in this too. So I think it's wonderful mouthfeel to it. To me, this wine seems a little bit more lush than the other one.
That's fair to say. I think it's fair to say. But I think this is one that you could also lay down. You still have more leeway in the cellar.
Exactly. this is it. I'm not getting as much savoriness out of this wine. I am getting a tiny bit of sandalwood, and that comes more from a little bit of oak that's on there.
You had even mentioned that. I remember you had mentioned that the first time around we had tried these too. So it's funny that you had mentioned that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I don't know. You know, we don't see a lot of sandalwood here in the Northwest, but it's a very aromatic, spicy wood. It's, you see a lot of it in Australian cabs and Australian red wines. A lot of times in California wines, they tend to get a little more sandalwood stuff. But I personally really like the sandalwood character in it. It starts, you know, it's kind of towards the eucalyptus, but it's not eucalyptus. But it's this really kind of exotic, spicy wood. It's just, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, it definitely has an accent there. I really like it. More towards the finish for me is where it makes it present.
Is it a down under accent?
No, but it definitely makes a little. So I just think it's funny. I totally spaced it out. But once you had said it, I was like, he had mentioned that last time too. You mentioned that last time too.
Glad you remember it. My gosh, see, like I say, I'm getting old. I don't remember everything that I did.
Just like what Chuck was saying earlier too. Sometimes just like writing it down really. Like, I mean, I struggle with the memory retention that Chuck and Raul have. I mean, for them to be like, oh yeah, this tasted like this. Hey Dorian, what did that wine taste like 2 months ago? I'm like, I gotta go work for it, right? So sometimes just writing it down really helps like cement that information in there, because everybody learns differently, you know? So I'm a guy that has to write stuff down, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it does make it fun when you can go back and kind of read over those notes and see what you're tasting, and then just going back and seeing how you were tasting versus how you taste now, because the more you taste, you start to fine tooth comb, right? You start to really break it down on what you're tasting versus earlier when you were tasting, it was a more broad description. So.
Yeah, I don't think it has a nice finish. I don't think it has as long and intense finish as some of the other ones have had. I don't know, that might show up a little bit later as the wine ages. But all in all, I really like the intensity, the lushness of this wine from the moment that it enters the palate and all the way to the back. And it's just the finish. It's just a tiny bit shorter, you know, on the fruit for me, but still has good tannin structure. That so, yeah. Okay. And again, it feels, well, yeah, a little bit more tannin. We might be experiencing a little tannin buildup too. For those of you who haven't experienced it, the more you sit down and you taste a wine. So if you, over a period of time, we get tannin buildup. You're probably experiencing it yourself. You get tannin buildup on the tongue. The proteins, the tannins are actually staying on your palate from perhaps from the wine before. And so you get tannin. And so that's something to keep in mind when we're tasting. So, all right. On to the 2007. Well, any comments? Did anybody have the 2006? Anybody?
Yeah, we had a great description from the Peters here. They said that after an hour of breathing that they were getting the fruit, but now that wine's been open for 2 hours, so they are starting to pick up that meaty flavor you guys were talking about. And I guess I will say it might be the power of suggestion, but they did originally get like strawberry and vanilla. Now they can smell the cherry and the sandalwood and like the other descriptors you both were using.
Yeah, you see, ours actually here are actually still cellar temperature. They still have pretty good. Gosh, I don't know. They're still a little on the cooler side, if you will. But so yeah, we're gonna have fun later on tonight or this evening when all of these open up a little bit more. So
Man, what a tough life to live. I tell you what, it is so hard to come in here with a positive attitude, just smiling and doing this with y'all. I can't take it. I just can't do it anymore.
and you're being paid to do this.
I mean, they don't need to know that, but that's fine. That's all right.
Wait. Cheered to.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So here we go. We're jumping into the 2007. There we go. The Helix 2007. Would you like me to jump that up?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, good sir.
You are so
Chuck and Dorian, do you have any dinner recommendations or food pairings for these wines that you've tasted so far?
Yeah, use me here. Gosh, switch gears here. I would, all of these actually have been really, I want to say they're tasting, they're very sophisticated, I think. Oh gosh, well again, anything, Italian is definitely, gosh, I'm always such a loss here. What would I'm just trying to think, like the 2004 here. That guy, I would, boy, I'm getting at a loss of words here. I'm trying to think of the perfect thing that I would pair it with. Gosh, I would even say, I almost hate to say this because I quit eating veal a long time ago. But, some veal Parmesan, I think would just actually, be incredible with that wine. Gosh, what else? I even think sometimes a little bit salmon. I had some delicious salmon here this last week. And I think that would go beautifully with it. I'm thinking of like the 2006 there. A little bit of maybe some braised lamb, with a stewed lamb. And gosh, and all of a sudden I'm also thinking about the eggplant too. I think eggplant would just be wonderful with this stuff. Yeah, gosh, and some stuff with it, some wonderful savoriness to it, savoriness in your dishes. All of these, especially through, the 2005, get some dishes with a little more slow cooked food, a little bit of savoriness going on in there. But not overdone. I think you got to be real careful about overdoing it. The 2006 that we just did the 2000. Oh, this is 2007.
Yeah, this is
right here. Yeah, the 2006. This guy actually, I think, could go with. Oh, I was also going to say. The 2005, like lamb burgers, I think would be really good. That 2005, because it has that little bit of extra rusticity to it, and I think that would be wonderful with that. The 2006, I think you could put with a little meatier dishes on that, and so. Gosh. Yeah. I'm going to have to think more about it. I'm not in a food, as you can see, food mind.
I mean,
right
but
now.
that was a pretty, I think that was a good, I think that was a good, recommendation for right now off the top.
And the chat has been doing a lot of recommendations too. So we have some people who made homemade pizza for the 04 and the 7.
Oh yeah, I saw. Yes, that looked good.
Oh, you know what
I
would be
saw
great
that. That
with
looked
that
good.
too? I'm a little duck.
Yeah, and so someone did ask, would duck be a good suggestion? And let's see, we have Mike over on the East Coast was thinking of doing pasta with lamb sausage and marinara tonight with it.
Ooh, you know what? Yeah, it with a little bit of fennel in that sausage and stuff. Okay, now you guys got things going.
We're on a roll
You're
here.
starting
Here
to
we
get
go.
get my brain
Here we go. Getting the wheels
going.
spinning.
But I think that's a great idea. And
these are getting.
all right, what's the first thing that comes to mind smelling this guy? What I'm getting off this before I started swirling it in any way, I was getting hit with a little bit of umami in this guy in the nose. So again, I think the 2006 has a brighter, more forward fruit than this. So here's an example where I think the 2007 actually shows like it has a little bit more age than the 2006. The 2006 to me is a little more upfront and forward than this. And nose getting a little kind of like candy cherry. I get both. I get a little bit of hint of, a little bit of sour cherry going on there, but also some candy cherry going on. I get that to me, this is more savory, but it's still, I think, a really plush wine. I think the tannin structure in this is really soft and plush.
I was just about to say the tannin structure is definitely softer in comparison to the 06. It's definitely softer. But I like it for different reasons, like I like that. And that's what makes it fun within, just the 12 minutes of a difference of a vintage of how it can be, right? Like how sometimes you just want to keep tasting something. Just keep staying with it, stay consistent with it if you can, because you maybe wouldn't have thought that for this one to be showing like this at this age, because maybe you tried the 06. You're like, I got time on the 07. Oops, sorry. Trying to add a tie-dye to our shirts.
Not a pretty thought.
No, but that was a fun part that we found throughout this tasting, that how some are aging, maybe faster, I guess, or maybe worse.
Yeah, well, this 2007, what I think is really fun, there's just a real beautiful undercurrent of savory. Yeah, these real beautiful layers of fruit in here. A little bit of plum. I find more plum in this, say, than the other wines. So we got that cherry, a little bit of sour cherry, a little bit of dark cherry. We got some plum going on in this. But underneath, there's just this real undercurrent of just savoriness, and that, you could, in the nose, you get that little bit of umami in there. I think this is one that can definitely cellar. Another 5 years or 6 years. But if you like it more fruit forward, bam, this is your wine right now. It's got great, wonderful forward fruit on it at the moment. And so the more this age, the more tertiary flavors it's going to get. In other words, the flavors from aging and being in the bottle, and we'll start to develop, a little bit more of that tobacco and leather going on in this. But yeah, I just love it. To me, this just has really nice plush mouthfeel going on. And so it's just a delight just to sit back, let it rest on your palate, and you can find different things going on, different corners of the.
Do you think it's fair to say that wine shows more umami characteristics this shows the most umami characteristics since the 04 than we tasted in the beginning? Do you think that's fair to say?
I don't know. The 2004, 2005, I definitely more than 2006. I wasn't getting a lot, but the 2005, I put it third.
You put it third.
Yeah, but it's this real wonderful little undercurrents. To me, there's this subtleness to it that, to me, you have to almost want to seek out savoriness to it. It's there, but it's one of those things that's the fun thing about it is, man, once you find it, you can taste it, you can see it. It's one of the subtleties of it, and I think that's going to express itself more and more as the wine ages. So that's the fun thing about it. So a lot of times when a wine has something small and shows hints of things when it's young, that becomes more and more as the wine ages. And it's particularly things like umami is one of those things that stands out a little bit more. So, and the color on this is wonderful too. The color and the 06 color was great. And so. Man, yeah, that's just something that's just so relaxing on my palate. It's just, you know, it's kind of like almost close to a good pair of slippers.
That's a good feeling. You know? That's good, especially when you wear size 14s. Yeah. It's a good feeling to get a pair of slippers that fit.
Yeah, so and that 04, man, to me, it's kind of more like, you know, sitting in the leather chair, pulling out the cigar, although I don't smoke cigars, you know, but not to say I haven't tried them. I'm starting to also get a little bit of fleshiness going on in there too. And so, in getting, again, a little bit of sun-dried tomato and,
I get some tobacco like on the aftertaste. Like,
are you?
Yeah, I definitely get like tobacco on the palate, like just on the aftertaste. Like it's but either way, Abby, you were saying something?
Yeah, so we have a question. Since this 07 has smoother tannins, does that imply that it won't cellar too much longer?
No, I wouldn't say so at all. I think you can let this go. To me, it hasn't rounded that corner of showing the age yet, and to me that's one of the sweet spots for me with Sangiovese. It's when Sangiovese starts showing some of that leather, some of that tobacco. You'll see it starting to brick up a little bit. What I mean by that, you know, the color in it will start turning a little brickish color. And to me, that's oftentimes one of the sweet spots for Sangiovese as far as consuming it. I don't literally mean sweet, yeah. And this actually almost has a little perception of sweetness to it also when I compare it to like the 04 or 05. But believe me, all these wines are completely dry. There are things that can happen in wine that give it a little perception of sweetness. But I think this will still be able to cellar longer. I'm not worried about it. I think the acid on this is good. Yeah,
I think that's been a common characteristic so far from, you know, the 4 that we have tasted today, is that I've really appreciated the acid, right? Nothing's been like too high or too like flabby or anything like that. So
balance.
It's really been nice. That wasn't something that necessarily through. We were all tasting it with Abby and Raul the first time through, but it's something that's been like it's been back there like dancing. I'm like, man, this is just, I've really been appreciating the balance of things right now. The acid in particular, because how Sangiovese can run away from you.
Yeah,
it's definitely been a consistent appreciation as far as today goes.
Yeah, the balance between fruit and acid on this, and I think the tannin structure in this too, in all of these wines, has been really, really delightful. To tell you the truth, and I'm really impressed with what we've done. My gosh, pat you on the back, man.
Yeah, I wasn't here at that time yet, but I'll take it. You know, you know, I can take some credit from 2013 on, but these are well before then. Also in high school at this time, so yeah, this is exciting.
I have to admit, everything is just. It really is tasting really fun to me today. So really, really am enjoying it.
Good.
So
good.
Oh gosh.
Because you do have those days where you notice that you taste better Like, you know, like it's like when you're on a hot streak, it's just like, you know, I got the hot hands. Like I can't be stopped, right? And you have those days, and it's kind of like that where you just, when you have those days, I found that you really got to enjoy them. Like you really got to, like, when you're on the hot streak, like, all right, let's taste as long as I can be efficient and try to take as much mental note
I
as
think
possible.
this is one of those days for me. I'm really thoroughly enjoying all of this. So, all right. Any other comments on the 2007? Let me ask you this. No, actually, we'll wait. I'll wait till afterwards here to ask that question.
Chuck, we do have a question. What type of Italian wine would you compare each of these vintages to? Like singularly, or would you say the 04 is closer to like Brunello, or maybe like somewhere on the Chianti Gran Reserva spectrum, or?
Oh, you know, well, again, that just depends totally also on their vintages too. You know, I would, and the little more aged ones, the 2004, I would put it towards Brunello, but more of an aged Brunello where the wines have the tannins have rounded out, mellowed out a bit. The only thing about it is it depends on the vintage, because like in a really intense vintage, I would not compare it to a super intense vintage of Brunello, but I really do love the characteristics, the umami, the fleshiness of it all. 2005 is a little more rustic. I kind of put that a little bit more towards, well, I would put that one a little more in the Classico range. And actually some of the wines that I tried, the 2006, when it ages a little bit more, will be. 2007, I think that has potential. If it weren't for, if it had a little bit more tannin, I'd definitely say it was more Brunello. But I think the overall flavors of that wine, I'd put in that. Well, in the 2008, we have to find out about that one. So, oh man. We're getting back to that fleshiness.
Yeah, you know what's funny is it's definitely more of a reminder of, like you're saying, those earlier vintages we were.
When you say fleshiness, what do you mean?
I mean that I just think of like steak tartare, raw meat, flesh. I'm somebody, I love carpaccio. Carpaccio is raw, basically raw beef. It's been marinated oftentimes in like with lemon and spice, and but cut very thinly. Steak tartare is usually, it's chopped up little fine cubes, oftentimes with egg and herbs, and which is some of my favorite food. I'm a blue rare person, so anytime I have beef, man, blue rare is, you know, basically seared on both sides. Yeah.
Nope. No, sir.
To me, that's when meat has the most flavor, and so that's what I mean by fleshy, when you start getting that in there. So
I think this is the favorite. This is my favorite nose out of all the ones we've had so far. I mean, it just seems, I don't know if rich is the right word, but it seems like you're about to get yourself into some flavor, is what, I don't know how else to do. So I don't know if rich is the word, because it could, maybe that's intense, but.
You know what I get on the nose? I get some like early season, like first raspberries that come off the vine. I get some of that, even a hint of rhubarb going on in there. Definitely some cherry.
This is just it made my when the first time I brought it to my nose, it made my mouth water.
Oh yeah, no, well, those are fun, intriguing flavors. And I'm getting a little more spice. I'm just from the nose itself, I'm not getting the sense that it's as well integrated as the other wines that we've had.
There's some sort of there's definitely an herb presence from like mid palate on. It's definitely making an impact. I'm not able to quite put my finger on it, but I like it. I like it, but it's definitely, there's definitely some sort of, I'm definitely getting an herb.
Yeah, to me, this is I'm not getting as much berry or flavor to it. I'm getting, well, like I said, I get more of that young raspberry, a little bit of rhubarb. I'm getting the tannins in quite as integrated as all the other ones are. So I think this one definitely, needs, I'd like to see it in another 2 or 3 years.
That's fair.
It's integrated. To me, all the tannins for the most part have been really, really integrated. I would say the one that comes closest to not being as integrated would be the 05, but I mean, that was really soft though, too.
No, yeah, I definitely thought it was soft.
And remember I mentioned a little bit of rusticity going in the 2005. So I see this as being a little bit more rustic. So I think this needs more time still for everything to come together in it. And so I'm kind of where all the flavors and the other ones just kind of flowed from one spot of my palate to the other. This one's kind of more angular. It's kind of the path to those flavors are more angular all over.
I think that's fair.
palate,
I think that's fair. I think it's really well put.
God, I'm also getting currant. I'm getting currant in this. Man. The others were getting definitely more plum and cherry, and some maybe even a little black raspberry going on, but this definitely more red raspberry and little bit of black currant and rhubarb and cherry. So it's interesting. It's fun things all over the place. So this is a fun wine to explore.
Yeah, definitely. For this one specifically, I think out of any of the ones that we've tasted today, this would be the one that I would like to keep my eye on over an extended period amount of time the most. Just meaning, so like, let's see how much this bad boy evolves. Let's see it really step into who it really is. Like, let's see it really become more of a finesse.
I agree with you.
Of a style of a wine.
Yeah, an adventure, learning opportunity. And
because that way you can appreciate, in order to appreciate it, what it is, you have to understand what it was. Right?
Yes,
like,
well
so
said.
you really,
That's
so
really well
this
said,
is one, so I think this would be one of those really fun, a lot of times wine could be, it's easy to not allow it to be an educational experience. That I think the worst case scenario with all wine, it's always going to be an educational experience. So even one like that, it has my attention because of like I get the most from this one. Meaning is like things that may not be so much desirable right now could be here in the future, so that's something that's what's so fun about wine is like you'll never know it all. You'll always have something. You'll never lose your curiosity, and I feel like
that's why it sucks to be a winemaker in this, because it takes a couple hundred years, maybe even a millennium to learn it all.
Yeah.
Or even then, you don't learn it all. So,
but it's so fun though, the learning process, right?
So
like,
we'll die trying.
Yeah. Well, it's really it's the difference of being able to appreciate the destination versus the journey, right? I think sometimes in life it's so easy to be so destination driven that you forget about the moments along the journey, right?
Yeah.
The laughs during the tough times, when it is getting hard and you are getting tired during harvest, the jokes, somebody slips and falls, or some it's just sometimes you forget those things along
Or
the
the
journey.
harvest truck breaks
Yeah.
down. Or the pump breaks.
It's just sometimes you forget those things along the journey, right? And that's what really makes the difference.
Or when we're dumping a fermenter in the press.
Oh my goodness. I'll never forget that.
We miss a little.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
I've seen it happen both ways a couple of times where somebody, is it getting close? And it's just Old Faithful right up to the face. Or you just see it it's up to the top, the peak of the roof. We'll be outside filling barrels, and all of a sudden you just have Old Faithful, and it shoots up 20, 30 feet, and then it rains wine down on us. Yes, those things do happen. They're far and few between.
Yeah.
It usually happens when we have somebody new in the wine.
Yeah, somebody new, exactly. It's always with somebody new.
Have you ever experienced it?
I'm not the full Old Faithful, but I had a little, little situation. I've had a little situation a time or two, but no.
We've been really lucky here not to have any major things happen.
No.
So, but
it's always fun, though.
it is.
It's always fun.
It always is. A lot of long hours, a lot of hard work, and what we really appreciate this guy for, man. He's definitely dedicated, man. He's definitely a team player. So
Just part of the team. You know what I'm saying? Like Raul, like when you have Raul and Chuck set in the bar, you're like, how do you let those guys down, right? Like how do you not, and you being the youngest one of the crew, like you're not gonna let these guys outwork you, like like come on, like you're not gonna let that happen. But it's so fun. It's so much fun seeing how, like, I told Chuck the other day, like, I hope I'm as young as you. Like, I hope I'm as youthful as you by the time I get to that age, man, because it's fun. It's cool to see somebody.
Well, you just got a new bicycle, so it's gonna keep.
Oh yeah, definitely it does. Yeah,
age is an attitude, and believe me, wine helps the attitude for sure. So it's really, really fun. We had a delightful comment yesterday. Our tasting room manager. His two young daughters hang out here at the winery a lot. And yesterday, she said to me, one of his daughters said to me, it seems like wine, how did she put it? Now I'm forgetting exactly how she said it. She said it seems like wine is the master relaxer for adults, anyway. Something along those lines, anyway. So it was really cute, and but it's true, age is an attitude, is age dependent way, and it's really a lot of see where wines go. This all the time, how long does a Cabernet Sauvignon last? Well, I've seen Cabernet Sauvignons last from, 2 years to 80 years. So that's about the oldest Cabernet I've ever had. But, it's, but every wine is completely different. The chemistry is different. Every vintage is different, and it's all about chemistry, and we still don't understand all what's responsible for aging in wine. But we know a hell of a lot more now than we did in 1997 when I first started making wine. The world just knows more about wine, but we still know very little about it. So it's kind of like the oceans. We know so little about the ocean, and wine is the same way. But okay, we've been talking a lot here. Any more comments? And we'd love to hear from you and your thoughts, and whether this is for you. And yes, ma'am.
We're wondering how long they should hold on to the 2017 vintage and the 2018. Now that we've been talking about aging.
Oh boy, the 2017. I actually think pretty darn close. but just judging from these guys, how well they're doing, gosh, I don't know. Again, it depends on what you consider your sweet spot, fruit forward or not. But
Yeah.
I would definitely say the good 6-7 years anyway. So.
Yeah, and that's what makes it fun. Like this, for me personally, the 2018 Helix Sangiovese is a personal favorite. I mean, as of right now, right? As far as like a bright, young Sangiovese, easy drinking table every Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday night, like let's line them up and sit them down. Like that's a favorite one for me right now. But that's the beauty of wine. It's all personal preference and it's all subjective, right? So that's why it is nice if you're in a position where you can grab 2 of one bottle. You like how it's tasting right now, let it rip, definitely enjoy it right now.
Right.
And then give yourself a timetable to enjoy the second one, rather it's 6 months or a year and a half.
No,
whatever.
you buy more. If you really like it, you buy more right now.
Yeah, worst case scenario.
And drink
worst
a
case
lot
scenario,
more. Drink a lot more of it. And then save a bottle or 2 for later on and see how it aged. And then honestly, that will give you a gauge for future reference. So when you come across a similar vintage or you taste something, you go, that's right, this kind of reminds me of that particular wine, that particular vintage. And I think it will last, judging the tannins, the acid, the amount of fruit intensity in it, that, hey, we might be able to let this one sit a little bit longer. And so, honestly, yeah, that being able to experience any wine over longevity, the more wines you can do that over time, and learn their longevity, the limits of their longevity, that's going to teach you a lot about wine. And again, it depends on, how our own palates evolve too. So that's going to change with time too. My palate's evolved a lot, since I started making wine, whether it's for the good, or bad, but it's just me. So we are always, like wine, we are all changing with time. So, hey, Abby, anything else here?
Yeah. Since you guys were kind of talking about how the 08 still had years to go, how many years do you think until optimum drinking on that 08?
I think it's a matter of personal preference. I mean, I definitely, Chuck, might have a window for you here. Definitely, but it's a matter about you, right? I mean, how do you like it? How do you want to approach it? But I
would, that guy, like say, I really like to see it again in another, 3 or 4 years to see how it's changed. And I would say at least try it again in 2 years anyway, 2 or 3 years, see how it goes and make another judgment right there. So right now, I'm thinking anywhere 5 to 7 years actually on it. But I really I would go back and revisit, and for sure in 2 to 3 years. And if I don't think it's going to evolve anymore, I would, start consuming it then. If I think it's going to evolve more, I would let it cellar again. So I know these aren't, they're just not easy answers, so, but that would be my approach to this particular wine. I would definitely hit it again in 2 or 3 years to see what's happened to it, and reassess then.
Now that you've tasted all of the wines, are you willing to rank them?
Willing to? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If you want, I can kick it off with Raul's ranking from when we tasted them earlier.
Sure. Well, I will. Do you want me to go first? Do you want me to influence people or not? I guess that's the big question.
Sure.
For the age and the tertiary flavors, the 2004, I think was definitely my favorite. I don't know, it's a toss up between 2006, 2007. They're both right there. the 2005, yeah, I like the youthfulness that we see in both the 2006 and 2007, the lusciousness of the 2006, the plushness of the 2007. And, you know, I really love that, the underlying savory character in that 2007. The 2005, I think is right there too. I think all four of those are just right in a line for me. Again, I like the age because that's just, I appreciate that stuff in a wine. You know, maybe 20 years ago, I would definitely say maybe be the 2006 or 2000. I'd probably say 20 years ago, it might have been the 2006, but now, yeah. So I go 2004, kind of toss up maybe 2007, 2006. 2005 is right there with them, but that's more of an aged wine. The 2008, it needs time. So it just does not have, to me, it's too angular still. It needs a little more melding, and so there's lots of fun things to explore in it, but it's not graceful to me at the moment. So it needs to cellar, I think, a little bit more, and we'll see if it develops any more grace to it. So it just, yeah, seems to be on this angular track right now. And I'm not sure if that's ever going to improve, but I think I really want to see it in 2 or 3 years, see if it will improve. So I've been surprised plenty of times before in my life. So we will see. So Dorian, you want to step up?
As far as like what my favorites were, so yeah, I flip-flop the 7 and the 4 today. I like the 7 the most today, and then I like the 2004, and then I'll go 6, 5, and then like I said, the 2008. I had different thoughts about it the first time we ran through it versus today. That's the one. That's the one that has my interest over the long period, right? So I'm not gonna judge it with the other 4 because I have different intentions with it, right? So I don't want to remove anything away from that. But for me personally today, I like the 2007 the most, the 2004, and then the 6 and then the 5. That was just my personal preference. You know, I really liked how those were showing. I would take 10 times out of 10. But again, if I had to choose like just what I was tasting, but even for me personally, I would almost even like to now that, because for me, I kind of have to like warm up. And that was my first wine of the one of my first wines of the day. So it would, and they've been open for a little bit longer. And we even noticed that when we did this tasting the first time, when we tried them, when we first went through it versus when we were done and we went through a second time, and then even the second day of trying the wines, it was really super educational as far as which ones aged more overnight, you know, which ones changed the most, things of that nature, kind of which ones showed better on day 2 versus what they did on day 1.
Yeah, and for those of you, if you still have wine left in your bottles after your tasting, you know, just put a cork in them or screw cap in the younger ones, and see what they taste like tomorrow. You know, especially the younger wines. I'll sometimes find wines that are the most recent vintages, young wines, oftentimes after being open, that even 2 or 3 days later, they really start to open up, and they're much better after 2 or 3 days. So after being open. So, and
it's quite just a learning experience, right? Like you would never think to like wait until you intentionally on your own at home. You're like, oh, I'm gonna open this bottle and try it in 24, 48, 72 hours. You would never think that on your own, but that's the beauty of when you are at the winery, when you do have something that's been open for, you know, a day or two, you get to understand and kind of make your own mental footnotes as far as what was this tasting day 1 versus day 2. And if it does make it to day 3, the pros and cons, what you did like, what you didn't like, that way you can understand and kind of just express the feeling and the character. Like, hey, if you like this on day 1, wait till it gets to day 2.
Yeah.
Like, see how it evolves and it changes.
Frequently is wines that we just bottled recently. I'll take them home. I'll open them up, just have like a half a glass of it. and then put the cork in it. And then honestly, some of them even, it takes a week, they'll be just fine and open up and be really fresh, after a week even. So for the super young wines, but so yeah. Okay, so we've gone through ours. What about Mr. Raoul?
Yeah, so when we tasted them like a week and a half ago, his favorite was the 2007. And note I think it was actually Dorian's note. You said that it was cute on the nose.
Yeah.
And then the 2004 was his second favorite, and his third favorite was the 2008. And
yeah, all right.
Man, yeah, that's funny. I did say that it was cute.
We miss Raoul. We wish he was here. So, all right. So, how about our wonderful guests here? Does anybody want to come forward and talk about their favorites, or is there, or just one particular wine that really stood out to you and that you have some real passionate thoughts about? And so feel free to unmic yourself and go for it.
I'm happy to speak up about this because this was a really educational session, sitting here and listening to everybody's thoughts about each year, and also being able to taste 2 different years at the same time. It was very mind-altering as far as Sangioveses are concerned. So it was great. I really love the 2004. It was so smooth and delicious. But the interesting thing is I had some sitting in a glass for the whole time that we were talking after we finished 4, and then I tasted it again at the end and it lost it all. So that's that volatility you were talking about. It lost all the interest. So it was very interesting how timing is really a part of it, and how pouring it out of the bottle and letting it sit in your glass for too long or not long enough can make a big difference in the flavor of the wine.
That's a really good point too, Deb. And it also could be too the fact that we tasted so many. And remember how smooth and soft those tannins are in the 2004. So after we get through tasting, going through all these, when we have the tannin buildup, that 2004 can feel like, kind of way too soft and like it's lost dimension.
But
so
it was still my favorite, hands down. But I
yeah,
only
so it can be fatigue, and we like in taste when judge for competitions and stuff. Believe me, it's not an easy thing to do. You taste 300 or 400 wines at a competition, and you think your palate's the same, at the end or halfway through as it was at the beginning. No, so that's one of the fallacies of competitions, if you will.
But we've been drinking the Sangiovese out of our club distributions, the 16s and 17s and all, the newer ones that are coming out of the club distributions. And we've been drinking those on a routine basis. And then we open these, library wines up, and there's such a huge difference in them. They have so much more to give, and it's really lovely. Thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Well, thank you. And I remember when these used to taste like those. So they really do change and evolve. And wine is a dynamic animal. It's always changing in the bottle. So all we're doing is slowing that process down of Mother Nature trying to return it to the earth, trying to return those grapes to the earth. And fermentation is part of that process. It would happen on the vine or here in the winery. And we just kind of slow it down and capture some of the beautiful elements of it for a time being, but
all the best of it.
Always trying to break itself down, even in the bottle.
Yeah. Thank you.
More thoughts. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that, and it really touched my heart that you found this educational and learning, and that's what we want, and that's why we do this. We actually make wine because we enjoy sharing it and sharing the experience and the adventure and the discovery of it all, and that's the whole reason why we do this. So thank you for saying.
It also made me really miss our wine tasting trips.
Us too, right? Like that's fun for us. You know, that's fun for us to get to hang out with you guys. You know, so definitely it's something that we're missing also.
Sure.
Yeah, we forgot how much fun you guys are. And Dorian, I got to tell you, I love to see your growth. You know, Dorian, we met you the first year you were there, and
Oh man, that's cool. That's so cool.
in the tasting room, and it's so lovely to see how you've grown and how you've really developed into what you dreamed you wanted to do. It's lovely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Do you recognize him? He doesn't have a bow tie on.
I still have the bow tie.
His name, and Pete
was
recognized his name. Yeah.
Man, yeah, it was funny. The other day, Tracy was like, Dorian, like, you're growing up. I remember you with your bow ties and your bright shirts.
He
And I
is
was like,
growing up.
I was like, I still have them. Don't worry. I still have the bow ties. I would love to pull them out for y'all at the next event. No, I'm a bow tie guy.
Will you
I
wear
love
one?
I love
One
them.
day during Crush? Just come in and wear the
I can make that. I know a guy. I
with
know
your
a
bow
guy.
tie.
I can make that.
We can join on a crush in the future, you know.
Oh, man.
What's that?
Hopefully we can join a crush in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. You know, come on out.
Help is gladly accepted.
And actually, harvest
You know.
is the best time to come visit the winery.
Oh, yeah.
Because you are going to learn the most about wine during harvest, and you just learn to appreciate wine that much more because you can taste just when it's grape juice and see what it becomes. And you know, it's an amazing. It's like Dorian was talking about. It's the journey of the wine itself. And,
Yeah.
and it's so much fun, like you said, when you have a case of wine and you can experience that journey, you know, over a 10, 15, 20-year period.
Can't agree more, because we've been buying larger amounts of wines so that we could taste them over time, and it really make a huge difference.
So much fun. It makes it that much more intoxicating. I mean, not necessarily. Not
Let it go too long.
just to watch it.
Where's the liquor control board? They don't know.
No, it just makes it more, as far as like it just makes it more fun, right? Just to see the evolution of things, right? It's of like knowing what vehicles were like, the first vehicles versus what there are now when we're getting to self-driving vehicles, right? Like, or even just seeing like the type of technology that's changing in the wine industry. Like, I love how hands-on we are and how hands-on the machinery that we have, and it's purposeful. Like, it's so that that way the artistic touch never is lost, right? Like, we want to be as hands-on as possible, so that way you literally get a taste a form of passion in Mother Nature at the same time, right? Like, all we're doing is just amplifying what Mother Nature is telling us that year. We never try to force way. It's just a matter of, we're just a phone for what she has going on.
She slaps a lot harder than we do. Hey, I got a question for you, though. You said that you have been buying individual wines in larger quantities. Have you found with time that that's actually helping you figure out what wines to buy, and does it affect your wine buying, what you've learned from tasting these wines over time?
Well, that's a really tough question, simply because in general, older is better, depending on the wines that you buy, of course. But, you know, like if we have enough tannin in the wine to let it hang out for a while, then it's really, really nice to let it. And we put a piece of tape on it with a date on it and say, you know, hold this for 3 more years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing seems to make it beyond about the 5-year mark.
Well, let me ask you this. Does it assist you in seeing into the future? So when you're in a tasting room and you're tasting a wine, and from your experience of tasting these other wines that you've purchased over time, does it help you see into the future?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Foreshadowing.
we'll taste wines in the tasting room and say, this one's really good right now, but it isn't going to hold on for 3 more years or 5 more years or 10 more years. It's not going to hold on for a while because there's not enough to it. But when we find something that's got some youth to it, but it still has some room to grow, yeah, that's it becomes obvious when you start drinking the older wines like these two. You know, having these side by side, the 04 and 06 is a good example of not only the different character of the wine by the year, even though it's the same grape, the years are different. But that's a really good example of it. And that is experience, any kind of experience. Like our palates have grown over the last 20 years of wine tasting, and we've really developed a different taste bud than before. And it really makes a difference when we go to the tasting rooms and we can say, well, I like this one okay right now, but I think I'm going to love this one 5 years from now.
So has it influenced your wine buying decisions in the sense that you now have that experience, you now have a little bit more knowledge of that?
Oh yeah, because we're more likely to buy the less expensive wine.
Yeah, well, are there wines that, say, in the past you would have bought, but because of that experience, you won't buy them now, and vice versa?
Oh, definitely. Yes, definitely. Because in the past we would have said, well, I like this okay, but it's not worth the 20 or 30 or $50 I'm going to spend on it. But hey, this is worth the 20 or 50, 30 or $50 I'm going to spend on it because 5 years from now it's going to be great.
Mm.
It does affect how we buy wine anyway. And it's made a huge difference just having a lot of experience. Just drink more wine. It's more fun.
Yeah, you got to use it or you'll lose it. Yeah.
We have to taste it and smell it and experience it because our palates have changed over the last 20 years. It's amazing to see, for me to watch how our palates have changed, and me in particular because I describe wines and he drinks them. He enjoys them, I describe them, and so it's really different in how we experience wine. But it makes a big difference in also buying wine for the future, because the more you taste over time, the more you kind of keep this file cabinet going. I'm kind of still back at file cabinet. I'm not into the electronic age as far as my head is concerned.
Wine is really cerebral too. I mean, it can be, like I say, that yum factor, or it can get as cerebral as we want to take it. So,
right.
Just a pat on the back to you. We used to have a wine club problem, and Reininger is the only club we still belong to.
All these years.
So what you're trying to tell us is that you really haven't learned anything.
That's not true.
Oh, we have become more discerning in our purchasing.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm pretty self-deprecating. So. No. Thank you. We're honored.
So, we have learned.
Oh, well,
The 15.
well, how about other people? Other people, you have thoughts out there too, and anything else you want to share about the wines or just wine in general? All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. Well, actually, before I conclude everything here, Abby is our marketing director, and she always has things that I haven't thought about yet. And so I know she's probably chomping at the bit to say something and about something I forgot to say. I am going to say another word. A week ago, we lost a very dear member of our wine community here, Doug Ross Skelly. He's the founder and winemaker of Taro Estates, and he sadly died suddenly in his sleep. And so the community's mourning over that loss. And but we're getting through it. It's tough times, but it's like every harvest, we're throwing something at us, and damn it, we're just not going to let it kick our ass. We're going to power through. We're going to figure out a way to get through everything. So, yeah. All right, Abby, anything else?
I guess on the more positive side of things, we still have wine available. So if you have tasted through some of these wines and you want to get specific vintages, please send me an email directly. so I can send you the right ones. Or if you want to have it be a surprise, continue going to that Mystery Sangio button on the web store. We have vintages 2009 through 2013 that we did not cover in today's tasting, but we do have those ones available. And, you know, a lot of people were really, a lot more people purchased than tuned in today. And so I think people liked this concept. So I think we'll probably do this with another varietal in the future.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for your participation, and look forward to seeing you in the tasting room. And we hope those flights are coming from the East Coast soon. And just hope that we can see you all personally, you know, in the near future. But until then, if this is the best we can do, we'll take it. So, but yeah, so take care. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for your support, and just keep enjoying wine, whether it's ours or somebody else's. Just keep evolving your palate and enjoying wine. It really is the libation of the gods, and you know, there's no way we can synthetically do, you know, make this happen or recreate this, and that's just how magical wine is. And yeah, just keep on enjoying it and learning from it, because there's so much to learn from wine. So we learn as much as we want to from it. Yum yum. All right, guys, thanks for your time. This has been the most enjoyable Sunday afternoon I have experienced in a long time. So thank you so much. So now we're going to go arm wrestle to see who gets to take these home.
Who gets to take the rest of this wine home? Yeah.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you.